And joining us now to discuss is Charmaine Yoest, conservative strategist and former president and CEO of Americans United for Life, and Sarah Parshall Perry, senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Thank you both for being here. We appreciate it. Sarah, I want to start with you. As we just heard in Owen's report, President Biden is suggesting that the leaked Supreme Court opinion isn't just about abortion and that it could have a negative impact on people in other ways. I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. It doesn't surprise me that this is a public statement that he's making. It's ultimately fear-mongering and histrionics at their worst. And in fact, the draft opinion itself, written by Justice Alito, limited the holding of the case, the potential holding of the case, strictly to the abortion issue and would not impact any other rights emanating from the Constitution. In fact, specifically in Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court recognized that abortion was fundamentally different from other privacy rights, specifically because it involved the termination of a human life. Justice Alito echoed that opinion in the draft opinion, again, saying abortion is unique and unlike any other right because it involves termination of a human life. So not only is it unlikely, I would say that it's very much in keeping with what we're going to see in increasing numbers heading into the midterm season.
Charmaine, this question is for you. We know the opinion was circulated to members of the court back in February, and the decision was due to be announced sometime in June or July before the justices go on their summer break. That said, why do you think the leak happened this week, and what do you think of this timing?
Well, I think it's a naked attempt to influence the internal vote of the Supreme Court. Obviously, whoever leaked it is trying to mobilize opposition. They wanted to see the instantaneous demonstrations that were coincidentally came up immediately after the leak that were outside the Supreme Court. But, you know, this may not cut exactly the way that they think it is. We had an immediate opportunity to kind of test their theory that it was going to help them in the midterms. But in actual fact, we had the primary votes in Ohio last night, and Republicans had record-breaking turnout while the Democrats did not. So, you know, maybe that's a little too early to connect to this decision, but it was an opportunity to test this theory that this was going to mobilize people to vote. And I think that there's been many decades of the left relying on really skewed polling with very carefully calibrated questions that led them to believe their own press releases that overestimated how much the American people supported Roe and supported a very extremist abortion regime that, if this decision comes down, as this draft seems to indicate, will actually turn the decision-making on abortion back to the people at the state level.
Yeah. And if we've been hearing, I mean, Democrats are pushing for Roe to be codified. In fact, Chuck Schumer told our Eric Rosales that the Senate is going to be voting on it as soon as next week. So what exactly will that mean if the court does overturn Roe? I mean, could that render a pro-abortion law passed by Congress to be unconstitutional? Sarah, can you break this down for us?
Yes, absolutely. It could indeed. And in fact, I don't know how one legislates on a right that the Supreme Court has already claimed does not exist in the Constitution. So the attempt to legislate at the federal level, something that is better left to the states, and which it looks like the Supreme Court is going to leave to the states, is not likely to pass constitutional muster. Beyond that, it is clear that the Democrats don't have the votes to overcome the filibuster, which they would absolutely need to do in order to get a piece of legislation like this passed. But what we're going to see in return is ultimately a state level initiative to push bills that ultimately protect life. We've seen them in increasing numbers, and 26 states are most likely to outlaw or severely restrict abortion, which is precisely the way the 10th Amendment to the Constitution and our system of federalism ought to work.
And Charmaine, on Monday, 3 major abortion advocacy groups, including Planned Parenthood, announced that they'll be spending $150 million on the midterm elections to help, as they say, safeguard access to abortion. I'd like to get your reaction to that.
Well, of course they are, and they're really trying to gin up as much histrionics and hysteria over this potential decision as they possibly can. That's why you see the president making statements that are making kind of wild allegations about, you know, throwing the kitchen sink in about how this could affect this, that, and the other thing. But again, I really do think they're overestimating the strength of their position. And you really have to kind of look at the fact that they don't currently have the votes in the Senate to push back, constitutional or not. They can't even get there right now. And why is that? Abortion has been on the ballot at the state level, in Congress, in the Senate, in the White House for decades now. And the truth of the matter is, despite the fact that they like to characterize Roe and the current abortion regime as quote unquote settled law, it is anything but settled, given the fact that the pro life movement has continued to pass legislation at the state level to bring it to the court and to bring it to this level, indicates that the American people really do want to see a change. That's the beauty of our system, is that by working at the grassroots level and actually voting, you can bring about change.
And we have probably about 30 seconds left or so. But Charmaine, any final thoughts?
Well, I think that it's going to, we do still need to wait and see how it comes out, but it's going to be a really dramatic decision. And I really do think that the pro-life sentiment is going to prevail.
And Sarah, how about you?
Well, I would say we're going to see an increase in inflammatory rhetoric going into the midterms, which my guess is precisely the design behind this early leak. And we'll see calls for everything from court packing to judicial codes of ethics. But ultimately, I think, as Charmaine said, this is going to be a conversation for the states. And the people have already made abundantly clear that they are interested most in protecting a culture of life.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you both so much for being here with us today. We appreciate it.